Hey everyone, I want to say something about the flow. And it seems to me that there is a flow to life, and we're always in it. And the difference is whether we are surrendered to it or we're fighting against it. But I'm not clear that we ever get to come out of it. So the analogy that was coming to mind for me was like I was just sort of imagining a fast moving stream, and that stream is going wherever it's going. And it may be that we get to a point where we don't like where the stream is going and our mind has an objection to it. And so we see a bit of tree or something or a rock, and we grab on to that bit of rock and that bit of tree. Um, and we hold on for dear life to avoid going any further in that flow. And maybe we manage it for a bit. But boy, is it tiring, because the flow is pushing against our body and we are holding on to that rock with all of our might. And eventually, at some point, something's going to give, and it's probably going to be us. And we'll get pulled in the direction of that flow no matter what. And the reason I wanted to share this was because I have somebody that I know quite well, and they were struggling with some health issues, and I'd spoken with them a couple of weeks ago. And I had detected that there was a direction that they wanted to go with their work. They weren't very happy there. And it really seemed to me like they just wanted to leave, but their mind was creating all kinds of rejections about why, or objections about why they couldn't do it. And I just kind of left them to reflect on it and say, well, at some point, you'll end up having to make this decision. And a couple of weeks later, I'd noticed that they were struggling with ill health. And it was almost like they wanted people to see that they were ill. And the more I eventually reached out to them, I said, look, what's going on? And it turned out that it was the same dynamic. They were still feeling like they wanted to leave this job, but didn't feel able to. And so they'd been clinging on to this job, hating every moment of it. Even when I mentioned to them about, have you gone back to work yet? And they were like, yeah, it's going to make my skin crawl to go into that place. So they clearly didn't want to be there, yet holding on to the flow within them that was basically saying you need to leave, because they couldn't see how they were going to manage if they didn't have the job. And I said to them, I said, well, look, either way, you're going to get pulled in the direction that this is going, because you're either going to just surrender to what you know, which is that you want to leave without a plan, and you're going to have to come up with something, but at least you'll do it from a place of freedom and health. Or you're going to hold on like to the rock for a bit, and you're going to keep trying and trying and trying to make it work, and eventually you're going to work yourself into the ground, and you're going to end up having to leave because of ill health, and you'll still have the financial problem potentially as a result of it. Maybe you'll have a bit more approval because they'll go, oh, well, she left because of ill health. But it's still the same outcome. The flow is going the same way. So I don't know that we get to exit the flow. I think the decision is more about, are we surrendered to it or are we resisting it? And for me, I'm not averse to resisting it. Of course I do. But there is something I see, which is that the more I get puzzled about the direction that I'm being moved, even if my mind is objecting, well, often my mind's objections are rubbish. They usually aren't bearing any resemblance to what actually happens. But also, the minute we actually trust that knowing, there are opportunities in that space that is then freed up. There are spaces for opportunity, or there's potential for opportunity to flow into that space that we're often not aware of. And often these negate the potential objections that the mind has come up with. So something to sort of reflect on. And, at some point, I'm going to be doing a health program again. And this was a health conversation, essentially, that I'd had with somebody, but it had nothing to do with their health or their symptoms. Or let me put it another way, it did have something to do with their health, but not their illness. right? And that was often what we used to find when we did health programs, was that people wanted to focus on what was wrong rather than what was right. Well, what if there's a flow? What if we know how to navigate that flow? What if we can be resilient in the face of change? These are things that it makes sense to talk about in the context of health, but often we don't. And if we're unaware of our resilience, if we're unaware of our ability to navigate the unknown, living in resistance and holding on to that branch in the flow, then we get sick. Well, what can we see about life that enables us to let go, that enables us to surrender, that enables us to be in our power no matter what happens? That's a conversation about health. And that's what I'm moving more towards doing, potentially with the health conversations at some point soon. So just wanted to share that little tidbit with you. I hope it's helpful, and sending lots of love. Take care. Bye.